Raise your
Sure.
rates. Keep raising them. You'll find the point in which you've charged too much and then you back it off, and there's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, you're going to make somebody upset.
Yep.
But you could charge half the amount you are right now and find the right person that's going to say you're too much. Yo, everybody, it's Make Trades Great Again podcast. Andy and Eric here. How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. We got some fan mail. We're going to get right into it.
Go at it.
This is from Victor in Denver. Thanks, Victor, for signing your name on it. Denver, Colorado. We only get the last 5 digits of or 4 digits of your phone number when you message us on the link in your podcast app. And I'd encourage anybody to message us. So, Victor, thanks for sending this in just a couple weeks ago, but we're getting into it now. Andy, this one's for you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to read it. How does Andy deal with still working in the field and running the business? He says, I have a similar size business with 4 technicians, 1 admin, and myself, but I feel like I can't work in the field anymore because I get distracted all the time with phone calls, meetings, emails, etc. So even if I'm working on something that's hardly productive, it's hardly productive. He says, honestly, I wish I could take off some stress of my technician sometimes to help out with a water heater or a service call, but at the same time, I'm the one who brings in all the work, so I can't neglect that side of the business too much either. I'm just curious how Andy structures his week or month or whatever makes it easier for him to still be productive in the field. He says, thanks, Victor in Denver, Colorado.
I've never heard that before. You're a one of a kind there, Victor.
That's a joke. Joke, Vic.
Yeah, it's just your problem, not mine, buddy. No,
Hey, you could say all you want, but it seems like something I'm familiar with too, and I don't even have people out in the field. But
yeah,
there you go.
I guess I don't deal with it. Right? Like that, it's a problem for me too. I wish I had the perfect answer. I think that it's one of those things, and I really echo your sentiment about, like, well, how do I grow if I can't actually grow? I want to be able to, grow the business and be productive and profitable, and yet I still feel like I need to be out in the field doing things. And sometimes that's just the name of it, is that you've got to be out doing some training. You've got to be out doing a few of those, those tasks, being a service technician for, a couple of days a week. And that's where I guess what I've ended up doing with it. Cheryl and I have played around with a couple of different things. And I would say what we have is better, maybe not perfect, because I still have a massive to-do list. And a lot of that stuff gets done, nights and weekends. That's just kind of where it's at, is spend a couple hours a night, not every night, but once a week or something like that, twice a week, it's got to be 2 hours in the office, to get through emails or get that proposal out, or, do that design build. Those are the ones I think that bog me down the most, is when we have something where we're like, I got to do an isometric drawing of this little commercial renovation we're doing, for a permit. And you're like, I need like 3 hours to do it. Well, there isn't 3 hours in any day that's not interrupted, so that's one of my big challenges. And then I, as soon as I get bogged down with that, then I'm like, I don't really want to do that. Yeah, I get a sore attitude about it, but I don't know. I think one of the biggest things that we have implemented that helps alleviate some of that is having the iPad, having House Call Pro, being completely remote. All my estimating and that kind of stuff is all done in the cloud. So it's all easy enough to do anywhere. I could, yeah. I mean, here's an example. Yesterday, Tristan and I were replacing a section of underground baseboard heating line under the concrete. We kind of went in, got laid out, breaking concrete, a little bit of concrete out, and he's, good to go on it. And I was like, all right, well, Cheryl calls and says, hey, I need you to, help me figure out this thing with Rob. All right. So out to the van I go, and able to do all of it, the dispatch and convert a estimate that we had won into a new segment on a job. And it worked out, but that's, sometimes you just have to say, I'm going to step away from it, I guess.
Well, I mean, if you have to be out working in the tools, you have to also realize that you're not going to be as efficient yourself.
Yeah.
There's no way around it unless you're going to schedule time in the office and schedule time on a job, and you're going to distractions are going to be minimal. You're going to, not take phone calls for a certain amount of time or a certain part of the day or something like that.
Right.
It doesn't really solve any problems, but if it means that, basically what it comes down to, from what I've talked to other people and heard you talk about, I think you can summarize it by prioritizing.
Yeah.
So if prioritizing your time on the tools means you have to take care of a customer and the office calls and, they're going to have to just wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that's how you want, if that's what you choose to do, it's kind of one way to look at it.
Right.
Or if you're going to say, I'm not going to work with the tools anymore. Helping the guys is nice, but maybe lifting and then coming back to the office, you hang a boiler and then you go back, you leave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's a lot of, what I end up doing on the day to day is, there are days where I'm out running service calls, exclusively. There's a lot of days where I feel like I'm out, helping getting a boiler, like you say, get it started. We get the demo done, get the boiler hung, and then I bail out. And sometimes I feel kind of half guilty about it because I'll be like, got started on this project and now the work's going to begin, and doing the install part, and I'm headed out. I'm gonna go do this other service call so that you guys don't have to pull off the install to go do a service call. And that's exactly. a lot of what I do is I almost kind of, I don't know if you call it to be the sacrificial lamb, if you will, to go run a service call because it might be easier and it takes care of another customer without bogging down a install.
Heck yeah.
Whereas like I could see with, and I remember those days, and the drill, of course you get a boiler install, you're, Wednesday afternoon, here you are, and you're like, God, I don't want to be here on Friday.
Right.
On this install, but I need to go change this water heater, or the, Mrs. Smith's boiler isn't working. I got to figure out how to get over to Mrs. Smith's house too. And, she's 45 minutes away and she doesn't have any heat, So.
Yeah. I'm in a different boat though, with only one of me and not expanding on purpose. Like there are times where things come along and I just have to tell them I can't do it.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying is, I remember back to those days of being a one-man shop, and we end up with a lot of that too, is the business structure or model says, take everything that comes through the door, right? Like be profitable, win every job, take every job. Well, that's just not realistic. If you had, 100 trucks and 10 of those guys were sitting around all the time waiting for that incoming call, perfect. You know what? That's a great model. But as a 4-man shop, as a 1-man shop, that doesn't work. It can be difficult to say, sorry, I can't do that boiler replacement. I'm not even going to give you a bid on it because I can't do it. And we've had a handful of those this winter where I'm like, God, if we weren't doing these 2 jobs, I would be really interested in this kind of gravy boiler replacement, but I can't get there. So what?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter if you have 10 people or 4 people or whatever in between. Eventually, if you get to the point at which you can't take on more work, that's right. A fact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I agree with you. It's tough. Yeah. And nobody, no self-respecting business coach is going to be like, yeah, just don't take the job.
Right.
They're going to talk you out of that. You know what I mean? But everybody makes that decision, even that business coach. It just is what it is, unless you have unlimited resources.
Right.
Time is not one of them. Time is probably the most limited. That's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're coming up into busy season for us, and I know that's not the case for everybody that listens to podcasts, because if you don't live in like a heating climate, you're kind of probably winding down a little bit. It's maybe gonna even out a little more for you if you're maybe, in Arkansas versus in Minnesota, But as we gear up, we've already seen a little bit different. I hope I'm not either, I don't know if I'm not superstitious. I'm just a little stitious. But if I say that, as I knock on wood, it's already started out to be a better season than last. We'll see if it lasts, by the way. By all indications, it should be a cold winter, right?
Right. That's what everybody's saying,
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully. I hope that they're right.
I hope they're right too, because this economy, and then last winter being warm, has really had a lasting impact on our local area, at least.
Sure.
I've talked to people. Well, you were there that day when we saw somebody at the wholesale house when we were together, and the guy's like, "Yeah, there's like 100 guys laid off."
Yeah,
that kind of thing. It's slow. It was very slow, and some companies are going to say otherwise, but I think they're full of crap. By all indications, I talked to everybody in commercial and residential here. And then you talk to manufacturers and the reps, and they're like, yeah, no, it's bad,
Right.
But I'm hoping that that's changed. And as we get busier, it's just going to put more pressure on everybody.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey guys, I want to invite you to visit mechanicalhub.com, because if you want to stay on top of the plumbing and heating industries and what's happening, you're going to want to visit our website, mechanicalhub.com. There's a hyphen in there between mechanical and hub. Don't ask. It's a long story. Anyway, while you're there, don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletters. All right. The newsletter is packed with the latest news, trends, tips to keep you on top of your game. So whether you're in the shop or out in the field, we got you covered. So head over to mechanicalhub.com and join our community today. And hey, thanks for listening to the Make Trades Great Again podcast. Have a good one.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, some of that you kind of look at and go, well, is this the, just kind of like that perfect storm, did you get a couple of projects a couple of big projects that kind of wrapped up and created an influx of guys coming back into the hall. And then, the holidays are coming up, so jobs aren't starting, I mean, I remember those days of new construction where it was like, yeah, we finished up this job in, mid-November or whatever. And well, yeah, they're not going to start the underground until after the first of the year, for whatever reasons, and it seems like sometimes that's that case, it's harder for sure. When it's, January and you're outside doing the underground, but, that doesn't mean, financially that it isn't the better time to do it. And so I don't know. I hope to see that your guys' stuff makes a little bit of a flop. I'm going to say I'm a bit disconnected here. I don't talk to too many guys that are doing commercial new installs here. So I'm that market is kind of out of sight for me. Whereas like running into that guy when we were at Gooden, saying, hey, there's a whole bunch of guys on the books. And I don't think that we don't have that right now at the hall. So I think that everybody's pretty busy. I think there's a couple of guys on the books, but pretty minimal.
No, the jobs report thing came out yesterday, and they said that there's an increase above forecasted, which is a positive for job openings.
Sure.
Nationwide to like 700 and something thousand, right? So like just under 1 million. It was an increase over the last report in September, like by a couple 100,000, which was that's a good thing. That means that there's more jobs out there that are open, not being filled. Right. So that's not unemployment. That's just literally
there's opportunity,
new opportunity. Right. And so that's good for the economy, obviously, but the the reality is those numbers right now are not construction jobs, which is what we're, obviously we're that field. And so it's it's not just one spot in the country. It's kind of all over the place. It's a little bit of everything, but
Sure.
yeah, we'll see. I mean, the winter time is obviously going to affect, it's going to make or break some of these forecasts for individual businesses, just kind of looking at closing out the year. I know it's going to make a big difference for me. My numbers are down, but then I'm optimistic. I'm doing fine. It's just I can't manufacture work that isn't there. When you're talking with people and the pricing seems to be way out of their price range, you look at you start looking at your own pricing and go, well, am I just too much? And you realize no, and I'm competitive because I'm kind of trying to monitor that too.
Yeah, it's always a concern. It's a very frequent discussion that Cheryl and I have. When we talk, weekly or whatever about, what do we do with, how do we prepare for next year, right? Should we be looking at raising rates? What are you getting for feedback from customers? Cause she does, I'd say probably 50% of our jobs, like our service calls, the customer has pricing before we arrive. Maybe not quite that high, but she's gotten pretty good at using House Call Pro and getting in the price book and saying, okay, here's what these things cost, and she'll plug in some of that stuff and tell the customer, oh yeah, it's going to be $680, or in that range. Yeah. And it's talking with her, she goes, it's pretty rare that I get somebody that's like, oh my God, that's so super expensive, which tells me like, well, maybe there's room to move, but we also get a handful of people that are on the schedule with other people, right? And we'll get a cancellation in that direction because they're there faster than we are.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I don't know why people do that. They think as if it doesn't, they're not worried about how it affects our business, but it sucks.
Sure. Yeah. It is tough when you make that slot, but I question that, I mean, if we do the bottom line calculations, hey, how much money do we want to make, this, that, and the other, I think we're on track. I mean, that's where Cheryl and I are looking at it going, well, we could potentially raise our rates. Do we need to? I don't know that we really need to, sure. I mean, more money is nice, but at what point is there a point? And, you and I have had this discussion in the past about like, is there a point where it all of a sudden becomes a negative, right? You definitely, I think it would be like having a bad reputation. As soon as you picked up that reputation as, those guys are pretty expensive, that would be almost as bad as, they usually have leaks, like it would not be a good look.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're right. And I know you're not talking about this, but there's a potential for that all the time because people's idea of expensive is relative to their own personal situation.
Absolutely.
If you're covering your costs and you have if you've set your pricing based off of that, then, and you feel it's right, then, that's the problem is it really, if it costs you more than people are willing to pay, then you can't do it. You know what I mean? Like that's just, you have to look at why that is. But yeah, I know that's not what you're saying, but like, it could definitely be a negative. There's no doubt about that. I think that's an understatement.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things it had Cheryl fired up here the other night. It was a House Call Pro Facebook group that, a post on there that somebody said something about, hey, I'm, trying to figure out how to offer, insurance to my employees. Currently we're, under the requirement. There's like, they said they had 3 or 4 employees. Right. And so that technically I think under 10, you're not required to provide it as a benefit, I guess, or a paid benefit, or to have some sort of an offering. Anyway, so the person was like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out what to offer. I'd like to be able to offer insurance because then it would be a good incentive to when, recruiting and hiring people, things like that. And they were out on their own, just, straight up solo. And the original post said, I've gotten a couple of quotes and I'm just like dumbfounded on how expensive it is. And I don't remember if it was initially they were covered under her husband's insurance, or one of the spouse had insurance or something. And then that is no longer due to a job change or something. And the comment on there, like 4 or 5 different times, people are like, raise your prices. And it goes back to that, like, well, what does that have to do with the question? Right? Like, I'm looking for options. What is everybody else doing for insurance? And,
well, it doesn't have it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Can I just give you my honest reply to your statement there? It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's a Facebook group. People say stupid crap.
I know.
And they're just like incomplete sentences, no elaboration. Like, I honestly would probably not believe about 90% of the replies in a Facebook if I put a question out there in a Facebook group, because that's what, like, in that, when the larger the community in which you cast your net, the more dead fish you're gonna pick out, right? Like, I mean, that's a silly thing to say to what, I mean, you're posing a serious question, but like, like literally in that case, those people are, I mean, there's a whole lot of right about the idea, like, raise your rates, keep raising them. You'll find the point in which you've charged too much and then you back it off, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you're going to make somebody upset. Yep. But you could charge half the amount you are right now and find the right person that's going to say you're too much.
Sure.
And so that's always you can't.
Yeah, it's not a one-time thing, but
you can't run your business off that. You know what I mean? That one person that's going to call you expensive.
Right.
Hey, could be your mom. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's all up to that person to decide whether they can afford you or not.
Yeah.
And we're both, we're not making light of the fact that people can't afford something, but also like, don't think that is the case everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's freaking, I'm a little surly today. I'm just going to say that much right now.
Right. No, I always got to look at those things and I got to take it with a grain of salt. And they're like, as soon as I'm like irritated, I'm going to draft a reply. I'm like, moving on, scroll away.
That's what I try to do most of the time too.
Get out of here. Cause this is not going to be a productive thing. Cause I don't know.
I try to think, like, honestly, the way I know this is what you're hinting on. I try to think about, if I'm going to reply, I say to myself, is this answering their question? Is this something that they can use? Like, is this actually useful information that I'm going to give them? Or am I just going along with the anger and the angst and be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. If you're just going to do that, like, honestly, it's not really helping the situation if that person's really looking for some advice.
Yeah. Yeah. You should charge so much that you can buy the insurance company.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just wait long enough. And with the right person that scrolls across that post, you're going to get we don't even do insurance because it's a scam. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay, now we got that person in the chat, here comes crazy Uncle Bob. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. I shouldn't say Bob. Bobs are good, right? Most
Bobs are good. There's some good Bobs out there.
What's a crazy uncle though? Eddie? Yeah.
Eddie. Crazy Uncle Eddie.
Uncle Eddie, yeah. Real tomato ketchup Eddie? It's only the best for you, Clark. Yeah, so there we go. Got a couple boilers delivered yesterday.
Nice.
Those are sold. I got one that's going to probably sit here for a little while. It's that job we talked about recently where I took on. It's a homeowner running it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reluctant to buy that boiler and have it because I knew it's going to sit here, right, until into the new year. And then I thought, gosh, is this a mistake? But you know why I bought it? I'm so, the credit, the
$300 and
the $300.
Yep.
Well, because I know I need the boiler, right?
Yep.
And that credit stops December 31 or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, whatever. However many days there are in December, I think the last day.
I need to get my poop in a group and get all mine registered from this year or from this last go around.
I got to take care of that too. The boiler sitting here though, it means something. Like, look, these things are not cheap, and I don't want to ever buy one just to have it sit here.
Yeah.
The longer it sits, the more things that could, this hasn't ever happened to me, but I just get nervous about like getting that call and be like, yeah, we're going to have somebody else do it now. And I got the freaking boiler sitting here. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, what do I do now? Like that was a waste of money, but I'm not, it's not, I hope that doesn't happen, but
what size is that one?
It's a combi. That's why I really don't like it. If it was an 85, just heat only, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah.
Cause I'll have a use for that before I would have a use for this one, right?
Well, bill them out for it. Say, hey, I got this thing. So got your boiler here. Send them an invoice, get paid for it, and then it's money in this year's books. And
that's probably what I'm gonna do. I had thought about that. I'm glad to hear you say it. That's good. I think that's I agree with you. That was my idea too. No, that's what I was thinking kind of the other day. I'm like, well, do I just send them an invoice for the boiler, even though they didn't ask me to buy it? It's gonna be. They're locked in on a price. They're 50% down on the job already.
Yeah.
I guess maybe they've kind of already paid for it then. I suppose you could look at it that way.
Yeah. If you want to write it off that direction, if you haven't done that much physical work on the job, then most of your labor is going to come after anyway during the install. So
no, that's true. I mean, I guess I'm just kind of in my head about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't like inventory. I always have a tankless water heater sitting here.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that now because hell, they're the same freaking price as a tank water heater.
Right. And they're smaller.
And they take up less space. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're a whole hell of a lot easier to throw in the back of the van and go and install to be like, well, not, you know what I mean?
I do.
Not easier, but seems like it.
Yeah. Well, that was a couple hours worth of what I did last night, was going through jobs like, hey, what do we have coming up that I have down payments for that we haven't taken receipt of the parts yet? Right. Like stuff's ordered. Is this stuff sitting at the supply house? Because if I've already taken the down payment, that shows up as income in 24. But if the expense doesn't come until 25, then
it's pain in your butt. It's not that you can't fix that, but it's just.
Yeah. But technically the expense doesn't come until 25. Right. So, one of the things that we were looking at is like, okay, well, we need to figure out how to maximize the expense in 25 or in 24, right? That's kind of the name of the game is, figure out where your expenses, make sure you're at least allocated. You want to look at those down payments pretty darn close and say, hey, well, how much of this down payment can we legitimately say we didn't do any work for that money in 24? We don't have any expenses accounted for it. Then that down payment can get moved as a deposit date into.
Oh, aren't you doing these material orders and stuff that you take deposits on? Aren't you doing them? It sounds like you're not doing them like right away then.
Typically, but so I don't get billed for the material until I pick it up. And that's what I was saying is like, what kind of material do I have a stack of boilers or, maybe not a stack of boilers. Do I have an air handler or something like that that's sitting at the supply house that I'm going to do and install in 25? But I don't need the part yet.
Yeah, so. I don't really. Yeah, that doesn't really happen for me because it's just always just kind of one or two jobs at a time.
Sure.
So I don't have to worry about like ordering and not having it delivered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's different because I don't have
different
4
scale.
people with the potential of install. So
Yeah.
the scale is different. So honestly, at my busiest times, I'll have like 2 jobs kind of in waiting that are bigger that might have like a stack of material here. I mean, like I could have more than that, but expansion tank doesn't take up a lot of space. You know what I mean? So I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a boiler or water heater, air, something like you're talking like a project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of projects that are going right now that'll have parts in February and March. So I'm like, okay, have I been paid for those parts? The one builder that we've been working with is like, hey, can you send us an invoice? Because we'd like to get that invoice for this year.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, I'm like, but I don't want your money this year because I haven't done like, hey, hang on a sec. Yeah, I'll send you an invoice, but don't pay me till January 1, And then he's like, well, but that's doesn't show up as an expense for me until January 1.
It happens every year for us too. And on both businesses, it just does this time of year. I mean, obviously it's not happening in, June, but
right.
Every year, just a little bit of it at least. I think you should get your orders in, have them sitting there. You know what else you need to do? I need to remind you is you need to go through that whole, stock of the parts and pieces you have to order over and over. Yeah. You probably are running out of, pump flanges right now. You better order up.
That's a fact. And I've honestly been thinking that, like, how many, what are this? I mean, I just picked up another, I think there's 24 Caleffi zone valves that just showed up the other day.
It's funny. I just ordered a dozen. You know what I mean?
Here,
it's like, go. I never not need more than like 3 at a time. So it didn't even go that far if you think about it.
Well, and that's just it. You go, oh yeah, I use 3 here. And then you get that one job that's got 8 on it. And you're like, crap, I'm out.
Oh yeah. You're out fast. You're probably scrambling actually.
Right.
I've had those jobs where I got the 2 different motors. I got the ones with the terminals. I got the ones with the pigtails. With the wires, and I'm like, oh, well, I mean, they're all the same technically. Yeah. I just replaced 3, 2 days ago. And it was the last, I had to scrounge. I had 3, but one of them was sitting in my van and 2 of them were in a box in the shop. And I'm like, I know I have these valves, but so I just ordered a dozen of them because technically right now I couldn't replace anybody's zone valve unless it was just an actuator on a Honeywell. I got a few of those, because we see a lot of those.
Miles and I just had that conversation on Monday. It was like, hey, how many of these zone valve actuators should you carry? And I'm like, you know what? My van right now, it's got 2 round top Honeywells, 2 square top Honeywells, 2 zone sentries, and 2 Erie pop tops, and 1 Caleffi.
2
just an
round
actuators.
top Honeywell. What does that mean?
The new style with the quick detach.
Oh, okay.
I don't. If and some people will be like, oh, you can put that rounded top, the 8000 series on the older one. I don't like that newer motor. I don't think I think the quality on it is junk. And so I would prefer to put the legacy square top motor on an older square top valve. Right? Because you can take the rounded one. It comes with the 2 screws so that you can put it on that motor. But we've just had a lot of failures on them.
Well, okay.
So,
I should not say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think Honeywell zone valves are garbage, but that's such a skewed statement because we have more of those than anything else. We probably have more of those than anywhere else in the country.
5 to 1.
Well, let me remind everyone if they don't know that I live where Honeywell is. So they've been quite successful in getting on the shelves in our suppliers.
Yeah.
For decades. And that's not changing anytime soon. And so I say I don't like them because when I get calls for failures, what do you think they are? Right? Yeah. That's those. And because that's what's in my market. I choose to use a different product ultimately because it came with unions and press adapters. Like that's why I choose it. Like seriously, that's the one reason why. So
I've had, initially we put a bunch of those in. We did a lot of the PLs, the Z55 PL. So it had that long adapter on it. So one short adapter, one long one.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody's out there looking and you're in the industry of like apartment service, right? Like you service apartment buildings or have multifamily stuff.
Has a valve kind of
deal.
You
should just carry Z55 PLs from Caleffi because they're going to be a bomb-proof zone valve, right? Pop top, quick change actuator. You can get them, is it 54 is Z54 is wires? Is that what you get?
They're both 55s, I think.
Are they? How do you designate your wires? versus the
I
terminals.
think there's a
that-
letter or something like that. I think a T and then no T. I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Okay. Anyway, they come with the like 24-inch wire leads or 18-inch wire leads, I think, and then or you can get them with a screw terminal. But the beauty of this thing is that it's union connections, and the new ones are the posi stop, so there's no gasket to deal with.
Yeah. Oh,
And they're
that's
sweet.
So nice. Yeah.
However, if you ever have to change the guts in that valve, like, hey, something happened, I got a chunk of wood stuck in this thing and I need to take it apart and flush
It's
this
on the back
lube.
side.
2 unions out.
Oh,
There
yeah.
you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's in order to access that, the only downside is like if you're in a baseboard enclosure, if you were going to try to pull that valve apart and clean it or
Yeah.
something, like for whatever reason you decide you find yourself there. The hard part is that access to that ball, the actuator inside of it is actually, it's from the bottom of the valve.
Right.
So you'd have to pull it out like you're saying. You couldn't like leave it in place, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
of course, who would want to, but let's say you had to do that, you know.
Yeah.
You have to get it off. I'm trying to look, let's see here. So I pull them up. I'm not logged in, so it's not telling me I got to scroll through. I got everything in front of where I want to be. Right? Bodies, just actuators. Like, come on, guys. What the heck? Supply house, dude? What's going on?
For some reason, I thought it was a 54.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. Apparently, Supply House wants to sell me everything else but the regular zone valve.
No, 54.
Is it 44?
40.
45 for
45.
3/4 with pigtails. Well, that's
Yep.
a sweat. 45P is press.
So
Yeah.
you're ordering Z45Ps. I'm ordering Z55Ps.
No. Yeah. I'm not ordering the pigtails. I'm saying I think you're saying that. I don't know.
I thought you said you did use the one with the wires.
I have. Early on, that's what I was using, but no, I mean, I ordered the 55s, I guess you're right. They're 55, and then there's 54. Is that what I said they were?
45.
44. Yeah, either way. I mean, when I order the motors, I just get so I keep a few of the actuators on hand, and I order those with the terminal blocks, unless they don't have them in stock or something. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Is what it is. If I need some today and I got to call and have Gooden run them out on my Uber,
All right.
then I get what they get. I don't really give too much care about whether it's a terminal block or a wire at that point.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I gotta put some wire nuts on the van. Can you remind me of that? Wire nuts.
Legos.
Oh, I have some of those. I like the blue and orange wire nuts better. They're just easier when you end up with no zone valve control. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which I see most of. That's it, man.
That's it. That's all you got.
That's all I got.
man.
Everybody, if you listen this far, please give us a review on the podcast app. We
Yep.
haven't had one in a little while.
No.
I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. If you got thoughts or things that you're questioning, send us a message.
Send us a message. Leave us a review. I hope it's 5-star.
Yeah.
We haven't had Chad on for a while, so that should affect things positively. I hope you're listening, Chad. I don't know if he listens anymore. I don't know if he does.
Don't feel the love.
No, I haven't heard from him much.
Yeah. I did. I brought back the honey.
Yeah. How was it?
From your place when we were out there, and I had it on pizza this last Saturday.
Oh, the hot stuff?
Hot honey.
Did you try the regular?
Bomber. Yeah, I have tried the regular. It is good.
It is good.
It's tasty.
This batch of honey isn't technically his. You know that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
It
tastes just as good. It does.
Went by the wayside with freaking poo.
What's that?
With
Oh,
Pooh
Pooh
the
Bear,
Bear.
you mean? Yeah. Yeah, his hive's got destroyed by bees. Well, what? His hives got destroyed by bears.
Yeah.
He said he wants to put I offered last year, and he said he wants to do it, put a hive at my place too.
That'd be cool.
I'm like, dude, have at it. I'm not going to take care of it, and I won't spray any weed killer, so you're all good, you know. But
Yep. That'd be a good place for it.
all right, dude. I'll talk to you
Later.